One night, Nixium decided to go to the monthly potluck at the Occult bookstore he frequented. When he walked in, he saw the most beautiful girl he had ever laid eyes on and instantly fell in love. It turned out the girl and her friend came by every other Friday, so Nixium decided to come in and see her a couple of times a month. They became good friends, but she already had a boyfriend, so Nixium decided the best thing to do was to not pursue her and just become friends. After about 4 or 5 months, she broke up with her boyfriend, but Nixium thought it wouldn't be right to swoop in on her on the rebound. Eventually, she told Nixium that she had feelings for him, and he came clean about his own feelings. The next summer, the bookstore owner officiated their marriage, and they've been together 8 years since.
When Gergak was in 4th grade, a pretty unfortunate thing happened to him while he was at school. He was walking down a crowded hallway during recess, and 2 of his teachers were standing there talking to each other. Just as he walked by them, he had a horrible feeling in his face, and suddenly he let out a very loud sneeze, followed by a thunderous fart. Everyone stopped to look at him, too shocked to even laugh. Thankfully, one of his friends whispered, bless you? And he kept walking. To this day, he can't look those teachers in the eye.
When Hellbent was in the 5th grade, during January, he told his friend that the world was going to end soon. He asked Hellbent when it was going to happen, and he replied, on February 30th. He believed it, so Hellbent told him it's a secret and not to tell anyone, knowing word was going to spread around the school. In February, the lie even reached other classes. Everyone was scared, and a wimpy guy told a teacher about it. They had to then convince everybody that there is no February 30th. That year, Hellbent had his name in the school magazine as the naughtiest boy in school. Salty Squid once had a girlfriend who always acted like a mom when he was with her and was very much the jealous type. One day, Salty Squid was on the phone making plans to visit his mom, and when Salty Squid said, "Okay, I'll go to your house," his girlfriend came in, grabbed his phone, and threw it on the ground. When Salty Squid reached to pick it up, she slapped his hand away and yelled, "How dare you cheat on me? We are over!" She then started yelling at Salty Squid's mom, saying, "And if I ever find you, bitch, I will F you up," and hung up. When she read the call log and it said mom, she was embarrassed and apologized. She ended up coming with Salty Squid to his mom's house, which was really awkward. She decided to break up with Salty Squid after that for putting her in that stress, quote unquote.
Pringle got himself into a conversation about whether Transformers would have life insurance or car insurance. Pringle decided it would probably be both, but 2 burly guys were arguing about it, and it escalated into a fist fight. Pringle tried to break it up, but one of the guys went a little too rough, and Pringle left school that day with a black eye.
A few years ago, Emoji had these white trash neighbors who lived across the street. Every week, they would sell drugs, fight pit bulls, and get into domestic disputes. They also had a 5-year-old boy who was the brattiest kid Emoji had ever seen. Every day, he would stand in the street screaming, "Fuck you!" at passing cars. He'd throw rocks at cars, and people loved to lock his parents out of their house. And Emoji's pretty sure his future will involve going to jail.
Ramona saw 2 kids fighting over who got to name the fish they won at the state fair. This one kid wanted to name the fish Toilet Bowl because he knew the fish would die quickly. The other kid wanted to name it Free Blade because of a video game he played on his iPad. When they fought, Ramona just sat there dying of laughter while they hit each other. The mom eventually stepped in and broke them up. The fish ended up dying the next day. The number 1 memory that I cringe about. I've told cringy stories in DTS before, however, I have another one, and that involves camp when I was in, I think, grade 4. I was around 10 years old, something like that. I was sleeping in a room with 3 of my friends, and what happened was the toilets are completely separate from the camp building, and so in order to get to the toilets, you have to wake up like a teacher, get them to escort you over there and all that. It was just a big pain. And it was the middle of the night. I'm up at like 1 a.m. like usual. Everyone else is asleep. And I really need to take a goddamn piss. I can't even leave the building because it's all locked down. Like, I can't go near a tree or anything. So I ended up just trying to hold it. Didn't work. I ended up pissing in my sleeping bag. I just full flow, like, psh, like it just streamed out. The whole bag was moist. And so what happened was I stuffed the sleeping bag under the bed, and I woke up someone, like a teacher, and I say, can I just like borrow a blanket, just like an extra blanket, please? And they gave me one. I woke up with that, and that was it. Like, I thought I got away with it, but the rest of the trip, my friends were like, what the fuck? What is that smell? Wait, do you guys smell that? Like, this whole goddamn time we've been here, I've been smelling piss, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, that's strange, isn't it? What could it be? What? And they never found out, you know. I was so fucking lucky. So lucky. But now you all know, I pissed the sleeping bag. It was great. Felt amazing. Back when Tolop and his wife were still in their teens, and in that phase of dating where they couldn't keep their hands off each other, they decided to try flavored condoms. They were a cheap brand from a local gas station and supposedly banana flavored. Tolop probably should have realized it was a bad idea then and there. When they got back to her house and to her room, Tolop put it on. So first of all, it was really small. It was clearly not long enough to be used for anything other than some oral play. But of course, both of them were still really naive and thought, nah, it's still fine for the real sex times. After that little bit of oral play, they went to having actual sex with the flavored condom still on. About 5 seconds in, she tells Tolop it's burning, like a genuine feeling like her vagina is on fire, burning. Tolop immediately stopped and pulled right out, and she ran off to wash up and get some ice. But it doesn't stop there. He wasn't spared from the wrath of the cheap banana flavored condom, because when he looked down and took the thing off, Tolop saw the upper length of his dick was turning bright red. He was having an allergic reaction, while the actual flavoring was burning her vagina. Took a few hours, but eventually that burning and rash went away. But god damn it, kids! Don't buy cheap flavored condoms from gas stations, and for love of shit, don't use them for penetrative sex, you fools!
Zaraganba once went camping in a national park with his family. There was one particular trail he always liked to hike up, and he was walking up there to meet some friends he had met from the day before. Just as he got to the top of the hill where there is usually an amazing view, some guy appeared, completely naked, peeing on a tree. Zaraganba screamed, and the guy just looked at him and said, "Oh hey." He turned around, walked all the way back to his tent, and pretended he didn't see a thing. One time, when she was 14, Mimi had her boyfriend over for a visit. He ended up staying for dinner, and her brother made some chicken breasts. When dinner was ready, Mimi and her boyfriend went to the table. As soon as the chicken breasts were served, she quickly realized that the chicken was still raw. Her boyfriend, on the other hand, didn't care and gobbled it up. He even reached over and ate Mimi's. She was surprised he didn't end up getting salmonella.
One time at McDonald's, Zaraganba saw a drunk guy come in. Instead of going to the counter or the bathroom, he just went straight to the indoor playground. He climbed up to the top, dropped his beer down the slide, and passed out at the top. Everyone saw him drooling in his sleep at the top of the playground, so Zaraganba just left.
When Zaraganba was younger, he worked in a dead-end retail job where he saw a lot of weird customers. But by far, the creepiest was a seemingly sweet old lady who came in to buy a new toaster. When she got to the counter, she looked at Zaraganba in the eyes and was totally transfixed. Zaraganba said,
That'll be $60, thanks.
but the old lady didn't hear him. Instead, she said, "You have a friendly smile. It reminds me of my grandson's smile before he was killed." Zaraganba laughed nervously and tried to process the sale as quickly as possible. He decided not to try and sell her the extended warranty.
When Spinal Palm was in primary school, around 8 years old, everyone in his class noticed he had birthmarks covering most of the left side of his body. Spinal Palm thought that everyone had the same birthmarks, but after all the questions, he realized he was different. Not wanting to look stupid for not knowing what they were, he told everyone that the marks came from bees stinging him after he took an entire hive by himself. He didn't actually think anyone would believe him, but to his surprise, the story spread around the school like wildfire. Even the teachers believed his lie. Students would ask to hear the story over and over again. A few years passed, and Spinal Palm had moved to a secondary school that no one from his old school attended, until one day a new student started and recognized him. During break, he asked him how his bee stings were. Not wanting to carry on the lie, Spinal Palm just told him the truth. The expression on his face was similar to that of a child being told that Santa wasn't real. When Kyle was in high school, he got into a fight with a bully who was always picking on him. When his dad found out about this, he took literally everything out of Kyle's room as punishment, even his bed. Kyle had to suffer sleeping on the cold, hard floor for 2 weeks, all because he dared to stand up for himself. Emoji had been looking on Instagram to commission an artist for a project. One day, he found someone that caught his eye. He followed her and liked and commented on her work. She would reply with cute little comments. After 2 weeks of this, she private messaged him. She introduced herself and they talked for hours. They had lots in common and became really good friends. Sadly though, she lived on the other side of the US. One day, Emoji saw on Instagram that she was going through a really tough time. She told him everything that happened and Emoji comforted her. She thanked him for listening. It was in that moment that Emoji knew he wanted to protect her. He was falling in love. When she was happy again, Emoji asked if he could have a video chat with her on Skype. He thought she was pretty and almost blushed when she told him he looked handsome. Eventually, Emoji decided it was time to tell her how he felt. He took a deep breath and asked her out. Emoji was listening through headphones and she said, "Yes!" so loud that it hurt his ears. It's been almost 3 months and they're both currently saving up money to visit each other. Spinal Palm and Princess Proton were once at a pharmacy casually browsing the items for sale. Another customer ran into the shop and grabbed a bottle of lube, ran up to the cashier, who was a young woman, and then he proceeded to pull down his pants, lube up his junk, and jerk himself off. Instead of being angry or scared, the cashier just sighed and said to him, "Really? You're doing this again, Greg." Spinal Palm and Princess Proton headed straight for the exit, but as they were leaving, the pervert winked at Spinal Palm and said, "Hey, handsome." Police officers arrived shortly after and arrested the crazy customer. What the fuck? In middle school, Legna had a very hot teacher who had curves in all the right places. During lunch, he was in a group of friends talking about her when he decided that he would make up a lie to make him look cool. So Legna told them that he had walked into class after school and grabbed her butt for a solid 30 seconds, and she didn't even care. Everyone he told went wild. It got to a point where everyone in school knew. He became really popular because of that lie. One day, someone told the hot teacher what Legna had said about her. She asked him if he'd said that, and he told her, "Yes, I did." She just laughed and told him to sit down. The best part was, nobody ever knew it was a lie until now. For his first job, Pringle washed dishes in a busy restaurant. His boss was kind of crazy. She hated wasting food and would always complain when customers had any leftovers on their plates when they finished eating. Instead of scraping the leftovers into the bin, she would ask Pringle to finish whatever was left. At first, Pringle ate everything without hesitation, so his co-workers nicknamed him the garbage disposal. But when it kept happening every shift, Pringle realized he was starting to get fat. His boss wouldn't let him say no, so Pringle kept stuffing himself with other people's food every single night. In the end, he quit because he couldn't handle the constant stomach aches from overeating. Back in high school, Mikhailem got the entire school to believe his friend, Gergak, broke the internet. It was a small school with about 120 students. 3 students were playing with some electronics and flipped the circuit breaker, turning off some of the power in the building, including the router. Gergak was usually part of the group that was involved. So, to bust his balls, when he was asked what had happened to the internet, Mikhailem blamed him. Eventually, the entire school thought it was him. People still believed it even after they graduated. When she was younger, Indy Mations was staying at her boyfriend's house and one day decided to have a particularly hot and steamy shower. All of a sudden, her boyfriend's mom opens the bathroom door and casually walks into the bathroom. His mother proceeds to have a full conversation with him while Andy is standing behind the curtain, frozen in fear. His mom stayed in the bathroom for 15 minutes, getting ready to go to work. After they thought she had left, Indy Mation sighed in relief and walked out of the bathroom, totally naked. To her surprise, his dad was standing there in the doorway across the hall. She was completely mortified. Dolan's brother Zaraganba loves Oreos, but the way he eats them is a bit weird. Zaraganba doesn't like the cream inside, so he removes it and throws it behind the couch. Then he puts ketchup and mustard between the two cookie pieces. After that, he still dunks it in milk before eating it. Froggy was 12 when she hung out with her badass older brother. One day during recess, Froggy and her brother were practicing baseball when a large, scruffy-looking man walked up behind them. He pulled out a machete and charged at Froggy, but her brother immediately jumped in front of her and hit him on the head with his metal baseball bat. The man lied on the ground unconscious with a broken nose. After that, Froggy's brother picked her up and ran to the teacher. When the police arrived, they arrested the man. Apparently, he assaulted his family, which explained the stains on his coat.
Turns out Ghost Toad's girlfriend was on crack, and one day while they were hanging out, she started yelling and saying the room was waving. Ghost Toast asked her what's wrong. She grabbed a huge knife out of her pocket and tried to stab him. He held her arms back, grabbed his phone and called the police. She was taken to juvie, but not before telling him, "We're through." Later, once she got out of juvie, she brought a ladder to Ghost Toast's house at 4 AM and climbed through his window to try to stab him again. If Ghost Toast hadn't been trying to watch every one of our Planet Dolan videos, he would have died. You hear that, kids? Planet Dolan saves lives.
One time when Dolan was 4 and his sister Ramona was 2, their dad was watching them while they were in the bathtub. Dolan was going through a phase where he wrapped anything he could find in some sort of towel, a blanket, or anything else. He handed his dad something that was covered in bubbles from the bubble bath. He said,
"Here, Daddy, here's a present."
His dad was kind of bored with the phase and said, that's great, kiddo. But he didn't open it. Dolan insisted his dad open the present. So his dad blew off some of the bubbles and discovered that the present he had received was a piece of poop that Ramona had left in the bath. Their dad was so disgusted that he threw it in the toilet and flushed it, washing his hands immediately afterward. Dolan leaned over the toilet to watch the poop go down, saying,
"Bye-bye, poop. Going in the sewers." When Pringle was in junior high, he saw one hell of a graduation prank. A group of seniors had set up a huge live-action game of Mario Kart in the hall. They put on roller skates and tutus and tied balloons to themselves like they were in a Mario Kart's battle mode. Instead of shooting each other with turtle shells, they used silly string, banana peels, and bouncy balls, which they collected by running into students dressed as item boxes. This sounds like the funnest shit in the whole fucking world. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. The game was complete chaos, but everyone had fun. Unfortunately, when the school's Nintendo-hating principal found out about it, he suspended everyone involved and stopped the seniors from going on stage at graduation. I don't know who you are, principal. I don't even know if you actually exist, but I fucking hate you.
In 2nd grade, Spincess's crush Tolop had a crazy little sister. One day, they took a field trip to the zoo with Tolop bringing his little sister. She was crazy and wouldn't behave, so Spincess picked a flower and said, "If you behave, I'll give you a flower for your hair." Tolop told his little sister to sit down and behave, and Spincess was surprised that she actually listened to him. Spincess also had stickers and, in addition to the flower, gave Tolop's sister a sticker that said, "Good job." The next thing she knew, the little kid was dry humping the bench and began shouting, "Yeah, motherfucker! Yeah, I'm a good kid, bitch!" Spincess started laughing, but Tolop was in shock.
3 months after dumping her boyfriend, Andy went out with her new boyfriend, Adam. When their date was almost over, they sat on a bench. After they sat, Andy heard a rustling noise coming from the bushes. Thinking it was only a squirrel, she ignored it. Just then, she heard a loud bang, followed by Adam screaming at the top of his lungs. Her ex-boyfriend was in the bushes, and he had shot Adam in the knee with a BB gun. Andy called 911, and Adam was taken to the hospital. She bitch-slapped her ex-boyfriend and cursed at him. Andy never saw him again.
The funniest thing Gooby ever saw a kid do was when she was in 7th grade. She was sitting next to a kid in science class one day when the teacher was talking about straws. When the teacher asked if anybody had any idea how the straws work, the kid next to her stood up. he pulled out his member and said, "Here, I got my own straw." Everybody in the class laughed, and the kid was very embarrassed.
So Hellbent met this girl on a dating website. They talked for 2 days straight, seemed to hit her off. She didn't have a profile picture, but described herself as attractive. They lived quite close to each other, so arranged to meet at a restaurant called Outback. Hellbent met her that night, and she wasn't at all what he was expecting. She was at least 380 pounds and had 2 double chins. Not wanting to seem rude, Hellbent sat down with her and tried to make the best of it. They started to look at the menus when Hellbent's date suddenly pulled out a Big Mac from her purse and began to gobble it down right there and then. At that point, Hellbent left and drove away on the spot.
When Gergak was in the 7th grade, he went to a friend's bonfire party. His friend lived on a big farm, and late into the night, they decided to check out an abandoned farmhouse. As they were walking around telling each other scary stories, a man appeared out of nowhere. He asked them if they wanted to pet his dog. They said sure, and they followed the old man to his house where he started digging. They stood there confused until the man bent over and he pulled out the corpse of a dead dog. Gergak turned around and ran until he could no longer hear the old man yelling, come back and pet my dog." It was a pretty sad night, to be honest. I went through all that trouble to dig up my dog and they wouldn't even pet it. Those little rotten kids.
Gooby's best friend, James Shark, was at her house one day. They were sitting around bored until he suggested a site they could visit. He got on her sister, Snoopy's computer, and typed in Pornhub. At the time, Gooby didn't know what Pornhub was, until a video began to play, freaking her out. Luckily, her mom hadn't come home yet, but at the same time, Snoopy pulled into the driveway. She walked into her bedroom to see Gooby and James Shark watching Pornhub on her computer. "What the fuck is wrong with you? Get out of my house! Oh my god!" yelled Snoopy. James Shark didn't leave, but he looked out the window and pointed at the driveway. Gooby and Snoopy didn't know what he was pointing at until their mother began to enter the bedroom. Quickly, Snoopy shoved Gooby out of the chair and sat in it, making it look as though she was the one watching Pornhub. Their mother yelled at her and then left. Gooby hugged Snoopy and thanked her profusely. Before walking away, she told Gooby, "You owe me big time." One time, when she was in junior high, Pandora brought a bag of paintball pellets to school along with her slingshot. At lunchtime, she climbed into one of the trees with the pellets and slingshot. Every time one of the lunch ladies walked by, she would shoot a pellet at them. They didn't know that it was her at first because the leaves hid her from sight. Pandora had fun turning the hair of the lunch ladies bright orange, pink, blue, and red. One day, the lunch ladies came out slightly earlier than before and saw Pandora climbing the tree with a slingshot and a bag of pellets. After half an hour of chasing after her, the lunch ladies finally caught her. She was taken to the principal's office, where they told her that Pandora was the one behind the mysterious paintball assaults. Pandora got a real scolding and was suspended for 4 days. Once she returned to school, she realized that her good girl reputation was tarnished. From that point on, Pandora never got away with things as easily as before.
I was out cycling around my town a year or two ago, and I had just stopped beside a bus stop to drink some water. Now, there were these 2 people at the bus stop talking to each other, a guy and his girlfriend, or maybe his wife, I don't know. Now, they must not have realized I had stopped just behind them because the guy was saying some really lewd stuff to her. He said to her, "Later tonight, I'm gonna gag you, and I'm gonna show you a good time, babe." To which his lady responded with, "Mike, we don't even own a gag." Now, me being me, I suddenly butted into the conversation at this point. I just said, "Oh, if you want cheap gags, you can buy yourself one at Spencer's over at the mall." And that made them turn and look at me, and there was this awkward silence. And I sipped my water. There was another awkward silence, and then I just rode away.
In 7th grade, Ramona's science teacher was the biggest pervert she ever knew. He looked down the bras of every girl in the school, was caught watching porn when he was supposed to be teaching, and once even suggested strip searching a girl who supposedly had a pepper spray keychain for people just like him. The worst thing that she remembers was when her female friend went on one of the school-sponsored backpacking trips that he happened to be chaperoning. The boys and girls both bathed in the creek that was there. The only problem was that he, being the main chaperone, had to stay with the kids while they bathed to make sure they weren't having sex. Ramona's friend happened to have some of the biggest breasts in the school, and so she was one that he picked on. He snuck up behind her and wrapped his arms around her, grabbing each one of her boobs, and telling her to take off the sports bra that she was wearing. The worst part was, he was never arrested or even fired. The few times people tried to report him, he got them suspended.